This episode is brought to you by Good Life Nutrition, developed by athletes like you. Whether you are looking for race day nutrition, daily electrolytes, or your daily protein, Good Life Nutrition has you covered. Built on science and backed by common sense, it's why professional athletes like Ben Canute, Jason West, and many others have made the switch. Enjoy 25% off your first order by using promo code SLOWTWITCH. Just go to fuelyourgoodlife.com and use promo code SLOWTWITCH.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slowtwitch podcast. My name is Kevin Mackinnon. I'm here with Slowtwitch's Ben Snyder McGrath, and we have two very special guests who are, I think, in Dublin right now. We've got Ash Coppinger and Rob Cummins, the owners of Wheelworks, a bike shop with 3 locations in Dublin and one of the largest truck speed concept dealers in the world. Rob and Ash, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to see you again. We had a great chat in Marbella for the 70.3 Worlds last year. So wonderful to see you again.
Delighted to be on with you guys. It's good to catch up with you again.
So first things first, how did things go in Marbella?
We both had a really good experience, I think. I had a pretty good swim, pretty good run, and slightly disappointing bike, but I think overall really enjoyed the day. I think I treated the bike more like an Ironman bike ride than a 70.3 and went a bit too easy. But that aside, it was a great day, really good experience. Ironman put on a good show for it. Marbella was a good location. The course was incredible. Ash had a slight technical issue.
Well, we had a harder swim. The women had a much harder swim, and I'm a weak swimmer anyway, so I was just trying to get on with it and survive. And then I had a puncture in 60k into the bike, but didn't know what to do, so I stood at the side of the road, and someone came along and rescued me. And then eventually, I had a good run. It was a great day. We were there to enjoy the experience. I don't think I batted an eyelid at the bad swim or a puncture. It's just great buzz being there and being a part of the whole thing. So it was a great day. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, so hold it. The owner of a bike store didn't have a spare with her to switch
Oh no,
it?
I had all the tools necessary. I just did not have
For mechanic.
the intellectual bandwidth. No, I've never had to change a puncture. You see, that's what happens when you own a bike shop. I don't think I've ever had one out in the real world. So, I've never had to change one, so it's totally my own fault. I just rolled up to a couple of people at the side of the road, and they said, "Well, we can't help you," but they got on a radio and they got Ironman people there. We just stood there having the chats for about half an hour, and then someone fixed the puncture, and on we went. It was a great day. A 30-minute rest stop in the middle, so it was good. Oh, once I wasn't in danger of losing a cut off, I was happy just to be going again, and delighted that someone helped me, and delighted I didn't get a second puncture and look like a total idiot. It was bad enough. So yeah, no, it was good. All good.
Well, hey, I've got a great idea for a workshop you guys could do at all of the Wheelworks stores over the winter.
I've been to all them
We do those workshops all the time, but Ashley's answer to that always is she doesn't need to know how to fix a puncture because she doesn't ride outdoors unless she's with me. So
I don't go out.
she always has a mechanic with her.
Yes. I do a lot of coaching, and I've had over the years a number of athletes that I work with who are in exactly the same boat. Like I'd always say, you need to be able to switch a puncture, and they just, why? You're always there. So like that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So, eventually I definitely want to talk about Wheelworks and all of that, but if you don't mind, could you just tell us a little bit about, how you got into triathlon, how life works as a triathlon couple and all that kind of fun stuff?
I was a triathlete first. I was a smoker and drinker, really. I never did any sport growing up, and opened the bike shop in '98, and About 6 months after I opened, I stopped smoking and bought myself a mountain bike as an incentive to try and get healthy, and so it changed my life a bit and got into mountain biking. There was a mechanic working for me at the time who was a cross-country racer, and he brought me out, introduced me to mountain biking, and over the next couple of years started riding on the road a bit for training. It was always the difficulty with mountain biking was you had to drive there. So the trails weren't right beside where I live, so it was an hour to get there, and you'd ride for an hour and then you'd have an hour home. So it was 3 or 4 hours gone for a very short amount of riding. So I started training on the road for the mountain biking and got to like that more really than the mountain biking, the convenience of you walk out the door and you're there. And then I was riding with a South African guy for a while who was a triathlete, and he convinced me to have a go at triathlon, but I couldn't really swim. I could swim breaststroke. So I did my first 16 races breaststroke before I learned to swim properly, including a half Ironman. That was about 2003, 2004, 2005, and learned how to swim. Met Ash in 2007. Ash was an international runner, mountain runner and ultra runner. And she was thinking about doing an Ironman and had a similar problem to me, except for she couldn't swim at all. So Ash sort of taught me how to run, and I helped her by putting her in touch with a triathlon coach to teach her how to swim, as opposed to trying to teach her myself.
Yeah. The first triathlon I entered was an Ironman, but I wasn't able to swim. I also didn't own a bike either, but I think I just thought it would be like another long day out, like another ultra run. You know, I just was completely ignorant of what was involved and just thought, oh, well, someone will teach me how to do this stuff. How hard can it be?
There's a theme starting here.
Yeah, ignorance. I'm full of it. And yeah, no, I think like most things, we just enter the event and then go, yeah, well, we'll find out once you've the gun to your head, you'll find out what's involved and just get on with it. I think you're better off not thinking about these things too much, or you'll never do anything. Like fix the puncture.
Yeah.
So Ash, sorry, Ben, I just quickly, if I may, Ash, could you talk a little bit about your trail running or your trail running career, or how serious were you with all of that?
Well, I started running just as a regular individual in 2003, but I went straight to marathons and ultra running. I just liked being out there for a long time, running slowly. The laziness in me took over, and I was like, let's go out and run for days on end, just very slowly. So I quickly got into 40 milers and 50 milers, and then started doing mountain stuff. I did short and long mountain stuff. I did short stuff. I ran for Ireland a few times, and I think, like I said, it's just the lazy thing in me was like, this is easier than trying to run fast. I did one fast marathon and said, that's enough. That's enough of that hard stuff. Let's go back to running for days on end. So did stuff like the UTMB and week-long stage races, and loved that kind of thing. Loved just being out somewhere new with a bag on my back and just keep going.
When she says she did those things, Kevin, she generally won them.
Well, I certainly didn't win the UTMB, but
No, not
I
the
did
UTMB.
finish. Like I did.
We have several trophy cases in the main store, and I tell people that the trophies are Ash's, the finisher medals are mine.
Believe me, I have been just going, yeah, we're getting sandbagged here, left, right, and center. Like, anyone who says, oh yeah, you know, I'm just so lazy, that's why I run for days at a time instead of just a marathon. Yeah, right there, the alarm bells are going off.
But even with Ironman, there's a whole laziness to me where I'm like, I'll train for short course, and then at the last minute, I'll enter a full and just do it. So I don't want to do the training for it. I just want to enjoy the day. So there's a laziness that's real.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunately training that and all that. You sort of can't put that and lazy in the same sentence. So
Well, most coaches I've worked with have told me I'm lazy. So I think
there you
most of
go.
them think I tool along in training. And then I'd say one thing, I race better than I train. You know, once I got a number on me, I'll go out there and give it everything. But I do train like a lazy person. Yeah.
So
She does.
where did you guys meet, or how did you guys meet?
Through running and training. Rob was training for his first marathon when we
I could
met.
never figure out why my runs didn't go well in triathlons. I was racing bikes when I started triathlon. I'd started racing on the road, so I was okay on the bike. Like in my first triathlon, I think I was second last out of the water. There was a very old lady behind me, and we both breaststroke in together. Well, yeah, it was a long time ago.
Very young.
But I didn't quite push her out of the way when I was climbing up to be second last out of the water as opposed to last. But I think I got off the bike then in about fifth or sixth, and then everybody that I passed on the bike just ran straight back by me again. I finished in about 3 hours for my first Olympic, but I could never figure out why. I just couldn't run. And then when I met Ash, I realized it's like, well, okay, you run like twice a week for like 3 or 4K each time. It's probably why you're a shit runner. So I met Ash through a running club that I joined, and she helped me train for my first marathon with the aim of I'd entered an Ironman the following year. And I thought, okay, first step is to do a marathon, see if I can do that, and then try and do the Ironman. Back then, that was 2008. And back then, I probably knew about 3 people who had done an Ironman, and that might have been the only 3 people in Ireland that had done an Ironman back then. It was a tiny, tiny sport, and it was crazy, you know. It seemed like a crazy thing to do, whereas now it's a really normal part of triathlon. When you get into triathlon, most people gravitate towards 70.3 in Ironman, whereas when I started back then, we were watching videos of Rick and Dick Hoyt on YouTube, and it looked like this crazy thing that you didn't know if you were going to finish. Like I started off my first Ironman not knowing if I was going to cross the finish line. It was really scary and daunting the first time I did it, and for the whole lead up to it, and that was where the running came from. So I met Ash through the running club, and she helped me with training, learning how to be a bit more of a runner than twice a week for 3K each time.
Yeah, the Ash approach sounds really simple. Yeah, we'll just run once a week, but it'll be for 5 days.
Yeah. More
Yeah,
and more.
yeah. There was plenty of
So-
days. There was days Ash got a call up for the Irish team, not long after we opened the big shop, to race a 100K championship race, and we hadn't been training that much. We'd only opened the big shop, and it was about 4 or 5 weeks before the race. So she was sort of on the phone to the selector, and I said, listen, if you do it, there's a numpties race. You know, I'll jump in and do the numpties race, which I'd never run 100K before. I think I'd done one ultra, which had gone really badly. And I thought, listen, how hard can it be? So we had about 5 or 6 weeks to go from, we were probably running an hour and a quarter, maybe on a Sunday with a couple of mates, to doing a 100K about 6 weeks later. So Ash came up with the training plan of, okay, well, we'll go out and do a 3-hour run and see how we cope with that. And my feet were in really bad shape afterwards, covered in blisters, and she made me get up and run the next day on the blisters, just because that's what ultra runners did. And then the next week we decided we'd do a 4-hour point-to-point run and got a bus home. And the week after that, we decided to do, I think, about a 6-hour point-to-point run and get the last bus home from a tiny village in the Dublin mountains. And we were most of the way there and realised we weren't going to make it in time to get food and catch the bus. It was either going to be, we'd have to run really hard for the last hour of a 6-hour run to make the bus, but we weren't going to have time to eat anything when we got to this little village. So we rang my dad and asked him, did he want to meet us for lunch? And he drove out, and we told him where we were going to have lunch, and he drove out and met us and brought us home. But that was very much Aisling's approach to training. It's like, well, we'll do 3 hours this week, 4 hours the following week, 5 hours, 6 hours, and then we'll do the 100K. It tends to be quite black and white and straight line. That's where we're going.
What the-
Yeah, we both
How-
finished.
How hard could it possibly be?
Well, the 100K was really hard. Were you? Did you finish?
Yeah, go figure.
I think Ash might have
Well-
finished on the podium, and she lapped me in the process. It was a championship race, so it was on like a 3K circuit. So she dropped me at about 70K and lapped me at about 90K when I was, well, a bit delirious. But
But it taught him a great lesson in that in an Ironman, when you get off the bike, you only have 42 to do.
yeah, we did
So
an
you
Ironman
don't
a while
have to.
later.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
Day out.
Yeah, but it felt like the shortest run I'd ever done the next Ironman marathon, which was a real eye opener for me. So it was a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, that's the first thing I always thought in all of my Ironman races. Oh, it's great. I only have 42K to run.
Yeah. 100K teaches you that very quickly.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy to announce I do announcing at an ultra event here, and that's hard enough. So I'll leave the running stuff to you guys.
What's the longest you've run, Ash? Longest race?
Well, besides a week-long stage race, the longest in one go was I did the UTMB while I was still
Beginner.
a beginner. You know, the UTMB is the race that starts in Chamonix in France, and you go to France, Italy, Switzerland, and back in. But there was a group of us to say we had no clue what we were doing or what we had signed up for was a complete understatement. I'd say between the 12 of us that went, we didn't have a waterproof jacket between us. We didn't have an experience of. We had gone out running at night in the Irish mountains, and
Which are small.
it was in the summer, and then we get to the UTMB and it rained all day or rained all night, and then it was scorching hot sun during the day. But I got through it. But I was 43 hours out there, and it's probably the least enjoyable ultra experience I've ever had, though. It was nightmare stuff of just being alone all night and just being in pain and just constantly not knowing where you are or how far to the next place. Or it was tough. Like most of them I have enjoyed in my ultra running career. I've just really enjoyed them all, but I have to say that one was difficult and it was horrendous. And then, you know, you only have about a 30% finisher rate, so people are dropping all around you, and mentally it's really hard to keep going if you just see everyone else is walking off and going home, and you're like, what am I doing out here? This is like awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the longest in one go I think I've ever done, is that 43 hours.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, you seem to have I feel like your Ironman history was similar as well. Your first Ironman experience wasn't that great. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, I enjoy. Okay, the day itself went okay, but I got leptospirosis from the swim. So about a week to 10 days after, I was hospitalized, and just it wasn't great for a couple of weeks. But no, the day itself I enjoyed. The aftermath wasn't
Okay.
great. But the day itself, I was really happy to be moving and to be getting through it, because, like I said, I'd only just learned to swim, and it was a cold, long swim in the UK, and it was hard. But as long as I was still in the game, if you know what I mean, I was enjoying it out there. I did great runs, like great
Yeah, go
runs.
figure.
I'm like,
Yeah, there's a shocker. Was it Ironman UK was your first one?
It was. It's not a race that's there now. It was called Ironman UK, but it was in Sherborne, which
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was
not there
probably at that
anymore.
race.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a good day. Cold, but good.
Yes, you swam around the castle, like right?
We swam it. Yeah, it was up and down quite a narrow thing. So there was no sighting or anything, but I think I just being really stupid. I had left my wetsuit open from nerves. I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And then got in and didn't shut it. So I was freezing cold, and like got out, and I had probably spent about 10 minutes in the tent with foil blankets on me trying to warm up. But it was a hilly bike. I don't know if you remember, but
Yes,
it's just
very
up hills. So I got
technical
warm.
hilly bike course.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I was within the cutoff and happy to be moving, and yeah, had a great run that day. Just delighted to be on my feet finally.
And
then,
so, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ben. Yeah.
well, so Ash, if I remember correctly, you were happy to be done with Ironman racing,
Yeah.
right? And then you got a Christmas gift.
Yeah, and then that, like, still recovering from the whole leptospirosis episode, and
But she really enjoyed it. So I thought, well, if she really enjoyed one, like surely she'd enjoy a second one.
yeah, which I didn't, and that's probably the worst one I've ever done. Just the worst run, the worst everything, But yeah, no, I didn't appreciate a Christmas gift of it. Ironman. I did go back for a few more, but yeah.
I didn't make that mistake again.
And so all told, how many Ironman races have you guys done?
I think I'm maybe 19,
Okay.
18, something like that.
I think I've never counted, but I probably about half that, about 10. Yeah.
Say so.
And have you guys made it to Kona, race there?
Ash
We
race
met
there.
Ben in Kona there this year.
That's right, yeah.
We were
That's
dressed as
right.
leopards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rob went twice, 2012 and 13, and then I did the women's race just last October.
And because you
Okay.
were featured on Slowtwitch in 2012 as well, right?
Yeah, dressed as leprechauns then as well.
That's funny. Very
Yeah.
funny that you caught my eye after you'd. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we made the front page of Slowtwitch, I think, back
Yeah.
then. And we only realised after we'd been talking to you that our fourth dog, a boxer as well, was featured on Bike Shop Dogs on Slowtwitch.
Yeah.
4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
A bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
That's
guys really it runs in the family, eh?
Right.
Yeah. Regulars, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we ended up, connecting with you guys in Marbella. We were looking for cool age group bikes, and I guess it was Rob reached out to us, and said, "Yeah, I've got a couple of cool looking bikes for you here," and hopefully folks will go onto the site and check out the little feature we did, photo feature of the bikes. They're very cool looking. I was going to say specialized, but no, of course they're just to drive you guys nuts.
No,
Very, very cool Trek speed concept. And so, yeah, like obviously this all fits in because of the store. Can you talk about Wheelworks and how that got all started?
Yeah, I opened the first bike shop back in '98.
And that
I
was in
wasn't a
Dublin,
cyclist.
Rob?
In Dublin, yeah, very small local bike shop in a shopping centre, just selling kids' bikes and £200 mountain bikes and really basic stuff. I'd never cycled except for as a kid, and I commuted a bit on a bike when I was younger. But I'd no idea about racing or mountain biking or anything like that back then. And I stopped smoking, got into the mountain biking, and the bike shop started to follow my interest then in the sport. So I started to get into stocking mountain bikes and stuff like that as I got into it. And then as I got into road cycling, the business gradually followed that as well. In 2003, when I got into triathlon, there was really only one shop in the country that was doing any triathlon wetsuits or accessories or anything like that. And that's sort of, again, the business followed my entry into the sport. And over the next 4 or 5 years, as I became more and more interested in the sport and obsessed with triathlon, business became more and more specialist, to the point where when myself and Ash got together in 2008, we didn't really sell anything other than road and tri bikes, the kids' bikes and the hybrids, and even a lot of clothing and accessories. The shop was really small. It was like 700 square feet. So we didn't have space for any of the other stuff. And as we got more into the specialist stuff, we gradually just stopped doing the other things. When Ash got involved with the business, Ash came from, so I don't have any traditional education. I don't have what you guys would call high school. I left early. I don't have college. So I learned how to run the business by making a lot of mistakes, but I didn't know, I wouldn't have learned the sort of things that you'd learn in business school, how to run a business properly. I was just, I was a shopkeeper in a small bike shop that was interested in bikes. Ash had gone through college and had worked for big construction companies as a project manager and had senior positions in that. So she knew how a business would work, how systems worked and stuff like that. And as she got involved with the business, I knew we'd outgrown the shop that we were in at the time. And we started looking at bigger units, and we looked at sort of twice as big and 3 times as big and 4 times as big. And every time we looked at a bigger unit, we sort of thought, yeah, there's all these things that we want to do. We want to do like a nice clothing area, and we want to do wetsuits. And we were looking at putting an endless pool in so people could try wetsuits. There was a big bike shop in the UK had done that. And then we also wanted to sell regular bikes, hybrids and mountain bikes and racing bikes and triathlon bikes and kids bikes. So we wanted to get back to being a proper bike shop as well as just the high-end triathlon stuff. So every time we looked at a bigger shop, we sort of went, yeah, it's probably not big enough. And we got a phone call from a friend of mine that's a property developer. And he, at the time, was the felt distributor in Ireland and had a couple of bike shops of his own. But he didn't do as much of the high-end stuff as we did. And he said, I have a property unit that's available. This is at the height of the global financial crisis, Curly. It was at the height of the global financial crisis. So nobody was looking at money and businesses were all contracting and nobody was expanding. But at that time in Ireland, they had just introduced a tax break scheme for buying your bike through your employer, that you could get a half price bike if you bought it through your employer. Commuting, we just had the schemes that you'd see in all the big cities now, where there's these rental bikes that you pick up and ride around and dock them in different places. That had just been introduced and it was really successful. And we'd had a boom in triathlon and sportish and stuff like that. So I knew there was potential to grow the business. And when I got this phone call from a friend of mine, he says, I have a unit you should go and look at. And I went and looked at it. And it was like 8,000 square feet. And we were in 700 square feet. And I went up and it was dusty windows that had been vacant for a while. And I was peering in the window and I looked at it and I just shit myself. I thought, this is going to cost like €1 million just to fill with stock. Never mind fitting it out or anything else. And I thought, there's no way we can do this. So I went back and I was talking to Ash and I said, there's no way. I said, it's too big. We don't have any money. Banks aren't loaning. In fact, banks are going out of business. Nobody's going to be able to we can't finance it. So we went back to looking at smaller units. And after a couple of weeks, Ash turned to me and said, if you don't do that, somebody else is going to open the biggest bike shop in the country, and you're going to miss the opportunity and you'll never forgive yourself. You'll regret it forever. And as usual, Ash was right. So I rang up my mate, the property guy, and said I'd come down and meet him. And I met him in his house that evening. And I said, listen, we're really interested, but I said, we don't have money to fill this. So I don't really know how we can fit it out and how we can stock it and everything else. And he said, well, I'm the felt distributor and I've got a warehouse full of bikes. He says, I'll give you a stock loan. He says, you can pay for the initial delivery over, I think it was like 2 years or something like that. So he says, I'll fill the shop. We'll put the initial delivery in. You pay that off over 2 years, and anything you buy after the initial delivery, you just pay on normal terms. And he says, I'll put in, I think he said 300,000 or 400,000 euros worth of stock. And I sort of went, okay. And I thought, well, if he's going to do it, maybe a couple of other suppliers would do it. So I rang up a couple of other companies we dealt with, and I said, I've got this great idea. We're opening this huge shop, and we'll give you exclusivity on accessories, or we'll give you exclusivity on clothing. You just need to put all the initial stock in. We'll pay for it over 18 months or 2 years. And they all said yes. And I was really surprised. We're sort of there going, okay, well, all of a sudden we've got €750,000 worth of stock available. And the shop it had been a furniture shop. So it was nicely carpeted and it was painted and it had lights and all that sort of stuff. It just didn't have shop fittings. So I thought we could probably fit it out reasonably cheaply. We'll put up slat wall and we'll, some of the suppliers were giving us some displays for displaying bikes. And I thought either way, if you've got like €500,000 worth of bikes in your shop, this is like 17 years ago, it's going to look really impressive. We pulled the trigger. I shook hands with him that night when when he said he was going to do the stock loan. So I agreed we'd do it. And we were in his house for 3 or 4 hours. I think I left the house at about midnight or 1 o'clock and got home. And Ash says, well, how did you get on? I says, yeah, we're going in. And she said, what do you mean we're going in? I says, I did a deal with him. And she says, okay. And she said, grand. And I said, we're getting the keys next week. So it all happened really quickly. And we got the keys and we got a builder in to do whatever fit out we needed and take out the stuff that we didn't need. And that was really where Ash's sort of expertise came in. I think we got the keys on maybe the 7th of January or something like that. And the builder came in and says, okay, I can have everything done in 2 weeks. And then a couple of days later, he'd ring up and go, yeah, it's going to take like 3 weeks. And I'd go, okay, because I'd never dealt with builders. I didn't know. And then he rang back and it's like, well, it's going to cost an extra this and it's going to take like 5 weeks. Ash just got on the phone to him and said, we're going to open the doors on the 1st of February. You got 2 weeks and you gave us your price. And she hung up the phone. And we actually opened the doors on the 31st of January after having the work done and paying the original agreed price. So it didn't take the 6 weeks that he was pushing it out and it didn't cost anything else. And so that was the sort of knowing how to deal with builders.
That sounded the right bitch now. I don't even remember.
I just pictured the conversation going like, hey, if it's not open by February 1st, you're coming running with me and we're going for 4 days. And he was like, yep, I'm okay.
Yeah. No, it was, so we opened up, and that was 30th of January. And we worked 7 days a week for the next 4 or 5 months. And towards the end of May, and it was crazy hours because we'd no staff. And the minute we opened, the shop just went bananas. It was like, I remember my dad looking at it at the time after a couple of weeks, and he said it's sort of like the IKEA effect. There's never been a shop this size in Dublin that was doing all these specialist tri-bikes. When you walked in, there was like 26,000 euro tri-bikes lined up in a row, and that was the most expensive tri-bike you could buy at the time. And there was 20 of them, and people were walking in the door, and they just go, wow. And like, there wasn't a fancy fit out, but there was a lot of fancy bikes, and it took off, and it really, it just, I think in the first year, our turnover from the previous year was up about 400% in 12 months. And we didn't have any staff. It was bananas. We were working 15, 16 hours a day. There was nights that we'd finish work at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd go around the corner to a local hotel, get into bed, sleep there for 4 or 5 hours and come back in at 7 in the morning, because the extra 30 or 40 minutes drive either way meant you were losing an extra hour's sleep that night.
Wow.
And it was a real rocket ship, but we had no clue what we were doing. We had no clue. We'd come from this really small business that was easy to manage. It was like, there was me and 2 other guys and Ash when she started. All of a sudden we had this business that was 12 or 14 times the footprint and 4 times, 5 times the turnover. Like, I was turning over in a month what took 6 months in the old business. So we didn't have systems. We were making mistakes all over the place. We were hiring people just to have people in the building. And we made a lot of mistakes in the first year. But about halfway through the first year, one of the evenings when we sort of had the place open and we had staff and things had settled down, we decided, we'll have a little celebration opening party just for friends and family, people that have come in and helped us paint walls and stuff like that. And we invited my mate, the property developer, in as well. And he came in that evening and he looked around and he went, wow, the place is jammed. He says, it's really too full. You could do with more space. And I just looked at him and went, you're on drugs. And he said, the unit next door is nearly twice as big. And that was empty as well. And he said, I have a tenant that wants to go in there, but they've got a mezzanine floor in it that we spent €250,000 putting in. And I'm going to have to rip it out because he needs the full height of the building. It was going to be a car repair, tyres, that sort of stuff. So he was going to put in car lifts. And he says, do you want to swap units and you can have the bigger unit for the same rent as here? So we actually ended up moving again 6 months later into the next door unit and going from 8,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet. And we did that towards the end of the year. And that's the main store that we're in now.
Wow.
grew like that for about 2, 3, 4 years. And we realized at some stage that we weren't actually making any money. We were turning an awful lot of cash and we were selling an awful lot of things, but we didn't know what we were doing. I was just making mistakes all over the place. It took us probably another 3 years to stabilize that business and learn how to run it. And we had a few years of everything being great. You know, we were running a business that was under control and we had a normal life. And then COVID happened and we had this huge bike boom. And we went back to 7 days a week, crazy hours, and the business doubled in size overnight in terms of turnover again, and maybe even 3 times the following year. But we had this huge growth for 2 or 3 years. And really what had happened at the start of that was the business had been running quite well. So we had a bit of a cash reserve and we had a lot of stock in the building. We were coming into season. So we'd been buying stock all winter and the building was full. And as soon as the COVID bike boom happened, everybody sold out of what they had really quickly, except for us, because we had been investing in stock all winter. And we were 2 or 3 weeks in or 4 weeks in, and we were having these crazy days where you were selling as much in a day as you might do in a busy month. I went home one evening and we were chatting in the car and I said to Ash, this is mental. I says, we've never been in a position like this before, you know? I said, but I'm shitting myself because I'm going home at night after we'd been in the shop all day selling bikes and I'm then spending the next 3 or 4 hours trawling through all the B2B websites that we deal with for Trek and Scott and Merida and any of the companies that we dealt with. At the time, we probably dealt with 5 or 6 bike brands. And I would be just trawling through trying to find bikes. And every time I find bikes, you'd be looking at it going, you'd add them into the basket and you'd be looking going, that's 30 grand. Like, well, I already ordered 20 grand's worth this morning and it's 30. And I remember Ash saying to me, you keep on getting this right, just keep buying them. You've got the money, just keep buying them. And we kept on buying bikes. And I'm putting in orders of 40 or 50,000 euro a day continuously. And there's 1 or 2 40-foot truckloads of bikes landing every week. And we're selling them so quickly that the lead-in time for customers to collect their bikes is going out from, we have the bike in stock, but we don't actually have enough mechanics. We went from having 3 mechanics to 13 mechanics in the space of about 2 months. And the waiting time for a customer to get a bike, even with 13 mechanics, was nearly 2 weeks. It was bananas. So we'd had this huge growth. Through that, towards probably 23, I think, 22, we decided we'd open a second store. Trek gave us a lot of help at that stage in terms of mentoring and coaching and stuff like that. And we opened that store in 22 and we were approached by another local store guy that wanted to get out of the business and we bought that in 23. So we went from the 1 store to 3 stores in about 9 months. And I've spent the last 3 years trying to figure out how to run multiple stores as opposed to just the one. So we're sort of at a stage now where it feels like we know what we're doing with that business. But I suppose in terms of how it relates to Slowtwitch and the triathlon side of things, we'd always stayed involved in triathlon and running and cycling from the start. And the business had followed us like that. But Aisling had sort of made the decision very early on that we were going to market the business around our involvement in the sport. And it didn't matter if I was a complete beginner. It's like, okay, well, you're out there and you're racing 7 triathlons each month. And I wrote for one of the Irish outdoor magazines. And then I did the Kona thing and that helped. But we always marketed the business around our involvement in the sport. And we'd always stuck with triathlon. And that business just kept on growing and growing. And it's got to a stage now where the rest of the business has very much outgrown the triathlon side. The triathlon is still a big part of our business, but it's the smallest part of our business when you compare it to road cycling or mountain bikes, but it's still how we market ourselves. So our involvement with the sport is very much how we've marketed the business. And sorry, that was a very long blog.
No, it's good.
I was just sort of thinking, like there's every triathlete on the planet is sort of highly envious. None of our wives ever say, "Oh, buy more bikes, buy more bikes." Like that was the line. I want to just clip that. I just want to clip that and play that for my wife. She's always saying, "There's too many wheels."
Yeah. No, I think the only other deal with the bikes is if I come home with a new one, I have to bring home one for Ash as well. There needs to be two. New speed concept needs a second.
So yeah, and are all three of the stores then Trek stores? Like how does that all work? Like you guys, are they all Trek focused or officially Trek stores, or how does that work?
No, they're not Trek stores. They're all called Wheelworks, so they're all our own stores.
Okay.
We're independent, but we are what's called a Trek partner. There's different levels of. I think it's different in the US, slightly different in the US, but it's probably similar enough. There's different levels of commitment. So you can decide we're going to stock 2 brands or 3 brands or 5 brands, and Trek is going to get 10 or 20% of the business, all the way up to we're going to be a single brand store, and you get much more support from Trek from a business point of view and a purchasing point of view, and that's the road we went down. We sort of made that decision gradually and very reluctantly just before COVID. It always felt really risky to me to have all your eggs in one basket, because like it doesn't matter if we're the second biggest store in the country. There's only one bike shop that's bigger than us in Ireland. So that, you look at it and you go, okay, we're a big business, but you're not. You're really tiny. Like Trek own 400 bike shops or thereabouts worldwide that are own brand, that are owned by the store. So we own 3, so we're tiny. Like compared to a company like Trek or Giant or any of those companies, we're nothing. So if they change a policy, you're very much at risk. Your business is at risk if they decide to change their policy. So we had always felt more comfortable having 2 or 3 brands, so that you had that fallback. Well, if one of them changes the way they're selling, or they decide to go direct to consumer or something like that, you have a fallback. We started dealing direct with Trek in 2016. We had dealt through a distributor in Ireland up until then, and when we went direct with Trek, it was really eye-opening when you deal with them, the level of support they give a dealer, which means that we can give much more support to a customer in terms of warranty, service, backup, but even things like education. Like they do a thing every year with us called Win the Season, where they come in and they analyse our business in the previous year and they give us advice and they go, okay, well, here's one area where you're in the bottom 10% performing bike stores that we deal with, and here's how we fix that in our stores. So they show you the problem and then they give you steps to fix it. Or they go, you're brilliant at this, tell us how you did it. They're really, really good to deal with from that point of view. They've helped us develop the business. The business runs much better working with Trek.
Okay.
We're both huge believers in the product and the customer service, and we weren't getting that with anybody else. So we gradually just moved away from other brands and became sole Trek just before COVID, 2019, 2020.
And so
But a lot of the yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
You want.
Ash, I was just going to ask.
Say. Keep talking. You go.
No, you go ahead.
I'll go fix the dog. You ask your question.
So I was going to ask Ash just why she felt it was so important to market the store around your participation.
There's probably a bunch of elements to that. Okay, so Ireland's a small country, and especially in triathlon, it's an even smaller community. And I think everyone knew Rob. They would see him at all the races. They would know who he is. And And I'd say they looked on him as almost like an expert, not just on, say, bikes, but also in triathlon, even if you weren't.
No.
But they did look on him as an expert. And so if he was on Instagram doing an unboxing saying something is wonderful, in general, they believed him, or there's a lot of authenticity to it. It's not, and people love those unboxing things, and that kind of thing. And like Rob could sit there talking about a particular product and it would get tons of views. So I think that was one element of always using us as the face of the business as well. And like I said, Ireland's a small country, so it's easier to use a story like ours and say, this is us and this is our business. People can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of how it was. But even when I met Rob, he had a triathlon team, let's say. And there was 4 or 5 of the best athletes in the country, and they all wore his gear and they all won everything. And they were brilliant. And at the start, we used them because we would say, write us a blog about how your race went, and we'll market it that way. But I think, we found there was a few problems with that, in the sense, not so much problems, but people writing about their race day. It isn't always the most interesting thing to the general public or the general triathlon public, even, where people are saying things like, yeah, well, I swam 25 minutes and then I biked this and then I ran that. And you're like, oh, that's a great story. But it's not really. So we try to make the story a bit different, in that it's about Rob or me, or how we get there, or how the training's going. And the idea was to put a personal element into it, without obviously being overly personal, but that was the idea, that we put a personal edge to it that maybe the other athletes didn't, because they're just writing for a shot. I'm not criticizing what they were writing, but they were writing for a shot. So whereas we're writing about our business and our training, and it did seem to hit a nerve with certainly the Irish community in triathlon, I think, in that they'd still all know Rob. Everybody knows him, so that was the main part of it.
And would you guys say that, like what we've sort of been seeing and feeling, Triathlon had this big boom up to about 2014, 2015, and then the numbers are kind of going down, and things are slightly picking up again over the last little bit? Is that what you're seeing on the triathlon front?
There was definitely a constant growth all the way through. Probably a little bit later, I think the US, I was reading reports that the US triathlon market was down when we were still strong. So we were probably a couple of years later, but Ireland's always a few years behind international trends. We on both directions, we're slower to catch on to them, and then we sometimes hang on to them a bit longer. But we've seen it about, in the last 2 years, I think we've really seen, you'd see early signs of it in the bike shop. I started seeing things in the last 2 years that I hadn't seen in about 15 or 20 years. So I started to see a lot of people coming in looking to buy beginners bikes that were doing their first triathlon, or had done their first triathlon on, a borrowed bike or a hybrid or something, and they were in buying an entry-level race bike. And we used to see that a lot back 15, 20 years ago. And then over the last year, we've seen it with race entries at home where races were selling out. And then internationally this year, where everything in Europe is completely sold out a year in advance. All of the qualifying races for Nice and Kona in Europe are gone. And I think the US will probably see that trend a little bit later, because I think you're going to see Europeans who are desperate to race and try and qualify or just get a race in are going to have to travel further afield, because there's very little left in Europe. So it's definitely on the ascendancy again. I think Europe this time is ahead of the US in that.
Yeah. Interesting. And Ash, we've always had long debates about, the women's participation, and, it's sitting in around 20% for Ironman races. Do you a couple of questions. One, do you feel like, people like yourself as and marketing around the store that helps hopefully get people inspired and say, hey, I can do this and get involved? And what do you see as other ways to try and increase the participation numbers?
I don't know. I think people would look at us and see that we're still in the sport after a long time. That's what people are saying to us now. So we must be very old. Like you've been in the sport for a long time. I see a lot of people coming back in that are our age, as opposed to, I think there's a gap probably of the 20-something-year-olds, maybe even 30-year-olds that aren't in the sport. It seems to be quite an old sport in this country. Maybe, it's a hard sport to get into in the sense of if you, it takes all day to do a triathlon. Really, it does. Even a sprint, like you're driving out there, you need to be there hours beforehand to rack your bike, etc., etc. It takes all day. So there's definitely a difficulty for women to, get away for a whole day. If you have children, it's going to fall usually on the women to organize that, and we see it with people in the shop. They'll say to you, they don't have time to race or, do that kind of thing. But I don't know how we increase participation other than maybe shorter events to get people into it, because I think a lot of triathlon lost out to Ironman. Everyone, 15 years ago, everyone was doing Ironman in this country. They weren't doing the smaller events.
Right.
Sure, they weren't really. So, and once they'd achieved that, they then walked away because that was the bucket list thing they'd ticked off, and off they went, So I think we lost a lot of people through that. But I think the shorter events, if we can get people back in and make it easier to, get into the sport from, it takes less time angle,
Yeah.
as opposed to Ironman, which takes over your whole life. I mean, you can't argue with the fact that a full Ironman does take over your whole life. And that's hard for people with young kids. Like, obviously, our kids are all well grown up, and that's what makes it easier for us to be able to do all the racing we want,
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of things here trying to get women into sport, isn't there? Like even training days and things like that, so they know what's involved. And yeah.
What is running doing better than triathlon? I feel like you're a good person to ask because you've been pretty involved in both sports. Like the running, you go to marathons. I don't know if they're quite even male, female, but 10Ks certainly are. And there are a lot of women participating in marathons.
Yeah. And it's very easy to get into running, especially in Ireland. There's park runs everywhere. They're free. They're there every week. You can come along and do them with buggies and prams, and, your kids can even run around most park runs, It's easy to get into. It's much less expensive, obviously. So you can't really compare it to trying to get into triathlon where you need your bike and your wetsuit and a whole lot. Well, not if you get from us, then they're super cheap and affordable. But running is obviously, it's much less intimidating for people as well, for beginners of any sort. Anyone will come along and, sign up at least for a 5K and think, oh, yeah, I can manage that. But I think triathlon can be intimidating and scary to people. In Ireland, like swimming is cold and, it's not the easiest thing to get into. But I think, running's not intimidating. I don't think anyone would think it is. But triathlon can be a little scary, especially if people look like Rob who are taking part in it. It can be a bit intimidating. The fancy bikes and the skinny bodies.
Yeah, running's not intimidating coming from a woman who says, for a marathon's just a short thing. Yeah, there we go. Well, Ben, as usual, I've been hogging all of the conversation. Do you have any other questions that you have of these guys?
I was just wondering if you guys, Ash, you had said, I think in Marbella, you said you didn't feel you'd fallen in love with triathlon until you were racing Kona. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. No, I definitely did. Oh, even after 10 Ironmans, I was just like, it's a good day out, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah. But then you...
Kona, and I was like, ooh.
But you said that you guys, you would like to go back. Are you hoping to go back this year?
this year, next year,
Every
every year after that. Hope one way that was the best. Well, I'm hoping Rob will qualify every year so that I can just go out and enjoy the week
A nice
long party.
yeah. So what are your
No, but
where are your race? Would you guys have race plans set for the season?
I have one planned.
Yeah, well, we have two planned. Yeah, well, we were doing. We weren't planning on entering anything early. We were going to just, wait and see. But then everything sold out in Europe, so we sort of had that gun to our head. And I panicked in just before Marbella, maybe the weekend before Marbella, and I entered Jacksonville.
Okay.
And so that's 16th of May. And Ash gave in and entered that as well. So we're both doing Jacksonville 16th of May. And then we sort of thought, I wonder, is there a 70.3 on like the week before anywhere geographically close that we could do? So we found the Gulf Coast one, Panama City Beach. So we're doing that on the 9th and then Jacksonville on the 16th.
Nice.
Oh, so a Florida
So
trip.
that's Florida trip, yeah.
Can fit
So
Disneyland
book the
in
flights.
between.
Yeah. No Disneyland. Don't do roller coasters. I get motion sick. Roller coasters are truly things.
You just like going in a straight line on a bike. That's
Straight
better.
line, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that'll be fun.
Well, we've done a few times. We've done the fall in November, the Panama City Beach one. We've done that a few times, and we always liked it because it's flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, and Panama City Beach is certainly, those beaches are amazing. So it's always a fun place to be. And that time of year,
it should be a good trip.
Not so busy and stuff. So, well, that'll be great. So nothing closer to home then? None of the Irish or UK races?
Yeah, well, we'll race a lot of the short course stuff here. I think we start this weekend with the first duathlon. Is a sort of a winter sport in Ireland, and the first duathlon is on this weekend. It's a short race, a 3.2k run, 20k bike, 3.2k run.
Awesome.
And then we've one in February, and then one in April, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, and then triathlon starts.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we'll do some short course stuff. We've been racing park runs and things like that. It was funny when we went back to. We didn't actually go back to Ironman as such. We started racing some of the 70.3s about 2 years ago. We hadn't done Ironman for about 5 or 6 years. And we went back and did some of the 70.3s and really enjoyed that. I'd never raced 70.3s before. It was either some of the short course stuff at home, but really, like Ash had said, we had gone from doing lots of racing at home to doing 1 or 2 or 3 races a year, and they were all Ironman. So I was as guilty as anybody else of gravitating towards the very long races. But we'd done, qualified for Marbella a year earlier in Jönköping in Sweden. I sort of thought, well, if I'm going all that way, I may as well try and qualify. So I qualified in Chattanooga this year.
Okay.
And we came back. We were on a bit of a road trip around like Nashville and places like that, and chatting. And when you have a really good race and you've got your buzz on, and you're thinking that was, you should do another one of those. On a whim, we entered Ironman Victoria Gasteiz 4 weeks later, and I don't think I've ever been as nervous coming into an Ironman as I was. And you weren't much better, but we did that with very little specific training. We did Victoria Gasteiz, and we both qualified. I qualified for Nice, and Ash qualified for Kona. And I think that really sort of got that, certainly after the Kona trip, it got that buzz going for both of us again for the middle and long distance. So
that's great.
That was,
yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we will look forward to catching up with you guys at some point, hopefully at the races. And thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with us. And good luck
Thank you.
Good luck on the Florida jaunt.
Yeah.
And with the stores and everything.
Thanks very much.
Well, this has been great. We've been chatting today with Ash Coppinger and Rob Cummins. I'm Kevin McKinnon. He's Ben Snyder McGrath. And thank you all for joining us for our Slowtwitch podcast this week.
This episode is brought to you by Good Life Nutrition, developed by athletes like you. Whether you are looking for race day nutrition, daily electrolytes, or your daily protein, Good Life Nutrition has you covered. Built on science and backed by common sense, it's why professional athletes like Ben Canute, Jason West, and many others have made the switch. Enjoy 25% off your first order by using promo code SLOWTWITCH. Just go to fuelyourgoodlife.com and use promo code SLOWTWITCH.